I don't know how many videos, I've done to this point about this very topic. And the topic is Hollywood has a Hollywood problem. It's not one of that is going to be resolved with one movie. It cannot be resolved with one movie. I don't think it can be resolved at all. I just think this is a new era and people need to get used to it. So Mad Max, everybody's talking about right now, has been removed already from 880 theaters. Film only earned $4.2 million domestically this past weekend. And it left the top five. This video is set to lose potentially $100 million. So I'm not saying whether or not Mad Max is good or not. I don't even think that's necessarily important to the point that I'm going to make here. You have two things working against Hollywood. Let's start with the obvious. They kind of screwed themselves over with some of their antics. And I think people are generally tired of it. And now that people have gone through, especially with the whole COVID era where everybody was at home and watching other people, finding other forms of entertainment, and it wasn't necessarily going to the movies. So people got used to that, okay? A lot of people got used to that, and they found that, oh, it's not so bad. So they're not like falling over themselves to try to see the movie, especially upon release. And even with sales of like Blu-ray or whatever, it's just not doing that well, especially if you compare it to itself. If you compare the industry to itself in years past, it's actually doing terribly, okay? And it doesn't matter if the movie that comes out ends up being solid. I'm not one screaming here. I don't know much about it as far as what it is and if it's woke and all that. Irrelevant, not even important. The data's the data, and it shows that movies really across the board are down. The budgets are also, and this was the second point that I wanted to make, the budgets are out of control. They're far out of control, and they're spending a lot of money, and they can't make the money back. They set themselves up for failure. Bad Boys, right? Came out. If there was a movie that I would have been interested in maybe seeing, it would have been that. It is doing, I think, better than what people anticipated, and it's made $100 million, but it also spent, I don't know how you spent $100 million on a Bad Boys film, but they did. And even from the previous film, it's still down in terms of the sales, as far as tickets are concerned, box office. So even the ones where people are like, oh, it's doing better than I anticipated, it's still a net negative. So that's the problem that the industry has right now, is that, and I don't know how do you recover from that? Don't have an answer. I don't think they can. That's the realistic thing. I believe all entertainment, and this is something that if it hasn't got to your entertainment preference, whether you watch movies, video games, whatever, if it hasn't got to your entertainment preference, it'll get there eventually. Okay? And that is, it'll be more decentralized. I think that's inevitable. I think a lot of people see that. You're seeing a lot of more independent films and things being created in various entertainment industries. That's going to be the way of the future. I'm repeating myself. I know I've said this before, but it's important to reiterate that. I think that's the way of the future. So if you are one of those guys that are spending $100 million, $200 million on a film, you're more than likely not going to make that back. I think what people need to realize is that what they consider a success is going to have to be far more limited than what it had been in the past. The success has to be contained, man. You can't be, well, it needs to make $1 billion. It needs to make $500 million. No, it does not. Now, when you spend that much money, you kind of set yourself up for failure. But I think what a success looks like in the future is just going to be, being a very profitable film. And you can make a very profitable film, but you probably can't spend $100 million or $200 million or $300 million. That's probably gone. Those movies that do that are either barely going to break even or they're going to lose money. And anything that happens outside of that is an exception. Because like I said, on average, everything's down. Everything's down. You can blame whatever you may, economy aside. I just think it's an industry-wide problem, and I don't know if it's something that they can recover from because the experience has changed, how people consume media has fundamentally changed, and people have a set of expectations, and you are no longer their go-to form of entertainment anymore. So there will be the guys that protect the status quo. They protect the status quo that are going to always prop this industry up as much as they can because there may not be a spot for them on the other side if all of this stuff ends up looking a lot different. But there probably will never be a better time to be an independent now because you got a chance. People are willing to look other places. And consider things that they once did not before. AAA gaming isn't the only gig in town. Independent games, you see how those are sort of on the upcoming. And same thing can be said with film, same can be said with comics, same thing can be said about basically every form of entertainment. So be on the lookout for that. And I think everybody needs to get ready. Thanks for watching. Be sure to head over to Rippaverse.com to check out our comic book company. We have books, plenty of merchandise, and even some glorious animations from Rippaverse Studios.